time this is the sort of life perhaps he would like later on. But of course he never achieved it. But that meeting had enough significance to help this lad out of, or man as he was, out of these circumstances. And once he'd accepted this friar, the friar said, well, come with me, and he took him away. And as he took him away, so I saw him moving down a path which was now light. There was always a great deal of joy at that instance. A great deal of joy. One who knows that whoever's been trapped is now on their way to another level. Now, about 3 weeks later, the lady concerned rang me up and she said, he's gone. She said, I've got someone else here now. So I thought, well, that's extraordinary. I was quite puzzled by this, but I went along to see, and she said that this was a young man and a girl. She'd seen the faces and the figures on the landing upstairs and in various parts of the house, and there'd been minor mischief, lights turned on and off and so on. I took this at its face value to start with, made some slight effort to tune in, and I find this happens quite naturally. The first thing I saw was a beautiful car of the period about 1929, an open tourer with upstanding headlamps, all very nicely polished. And I wondered where this featured in this particular haunting. Then I saw the couple. Then I saw the car again. This time the car was smashed in at the front, up against a tree. The young man and his girlfriend, it wasn't a young girl, it was his girlfriend as it happened, but she was short in stature and easily mistaken for a girl. He'd borrowed a car from a friend without asking for consent. He'd driven this car away just for a joyride, happens these days of course, took a bend too fast, hit the tree, both killed outright, and being killed so suddenly, they found themselves standing outside the wreckage, not realizing what had happened. And the man's first thought was, I've got to find somewhere where they'll tow the car away and repair it. And this was the dominant thought in his mind. He was filled with guilt and the need to do something about this. So he and the girl wandered off. And believe it or not, since 1929 they'd been wandering, and they'd practically forgotten what it was they were looking for. And it was only when I began to take them through the experience again that they recalled the event. And having done that, recalled the event, the emotional bondage, if you like, the mental bondage in which they'd found themselves was released. And I wondered how again. I always wonder this, what's going to happen next. And they were standing there, and suddenly I was aware of the car at the side of them, and they were equally surprised. And the car now was perfect. There was no damage done to it. It was standing there ready. And the pair of them got in it. And to the man's amazement, it started up on its own. And it went along the track ahead. And I knew, in fact I was told, that ahead of them lay a party that would welcome them. And that was the end of that one. On another occasion, a sort of variation on this way in which people are taken away, I went to a haunted house at another village outside, well, Newark this time. And a Major Brown, I think it was, had been living in this house for many years, and he was about to sell it. It was very strongly haunted. He wanted to know what the story was before he sold it, so that it in fact satisfies curiosity. Well, when I allowed myself to tune into the situation, I became aware of a young woman. She was dressed in white as a servant, and the period I was picking up was the early Victorian era, and she had been the maid in the house, and everything went well until a man was taken on as a sort of ostler to look after the horses. It turned out to be a very unpleasant character, and he stirred up a great deal of trouble. She complained to the master of the house, tried to get him to understand this man was a bad man and was doing no good was doing a lot of harm. And she had a great deal of trouble trying to persuade the master because the man was very persuasive himself. The man saw that her activities were threatening him and he murdered her. He made it look like an accident sufficiently for it to be passed off as one. But when she passed into the next life, her immediate concern was to take her revenge. And she refused to be moved from the level, that is the near-earth level. And she did her best to haunt this man and make his life a misery. And when eventually he died, she found she couldn't get away. She'd committed herself to this level and couldn't move from it. Well, again, she was released, having gone through her story with her. She was released, but instead of going to the level that we sometimes call Summerland, or the level of the plane of illusion, some of you may know about this, instead of going straight there, she would have had to make a journey. People often find that if they have some sort of spiritual problems, a lack of development in a certain direction, that they may have to make a sort of pilgrim's progress. They can't go straight to this destination. They have to take a journey. And this was the case with her, but I knew that in the course of time she would be perfectly all right. She was released. She was never seen anymore, incidentally. This is the test. All these hauntings, if one does release these people, then they're never seen again. Sometimes when they are driven out by some form of exorcism, they return a few days later. I think one of the differences between the thing that I do and the thing that some church people do is that I am very concerned about the one who is trapped. But very often an exorcism as carried out by the church, not invariably so, depends on the understanding of the man who's doing it, but very often the process of exorcism drives the character away from where they are doing the haunting and out into the darkness. And that may succeed for a few days, but you'll find that very often they will return because they haven't been released. They've merely been pushed away somewhere else. That's not good enough. This lady was never seen again. But while I was still in the house, I was asked if I could comment on another haunting in the same house. Very often houses are doubly haunted, you know. Another haunting in the same house that was occurring in the area outside. There I found a man of the late 18th century, and he was dressed in riding attire. He was stuck there, and I went through his experience with him. What happened was that he was mounting a horse, he got thrown, he fell on his back was broken. The servants came out to carry him in, and in doing so they snapped the spinal cord. He died instantly. He was very attached to his daughter. That was one reason why he got stuck, but the main reason was that he was firmly a product of the age of reason. He was a humanist and completely disbelieved in survival. It was something that he just could not accept. And if you don't accept it, very firmly don't accept it, it can act to hold you down. I'll tell you more about the mechanics of this in a little while. But again, having gone through his experience with him, released him from the emotional and mental block that was there, I waited to see what would happen. And a horse cantered onto the scene. The scene was the yard itself where all this happened. And it was a horse that he knew well. He mounted the horse, and as they went, I was told the horse knows the pastures to which the man is to go.